Hello and welcome to my first LinkedIn Live with my good friend and collaborator, Lynn Miller. Hey, Lynn, how are you?
I'm good, Melissa. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm excited to get the party started. So we're going to move right into it. So hopefully we don't bore anyone with our information that we're passing on. And we hope you will experience this and look at it as wisdom that we want you to have to make your life better, not just tomorrow, but actually today. So today, we're going to start off with the backstory and the results of a contest that Lynn and I were the producers on. And it was all about being one of the best networking mentors in the world. And I'm going to let Lynn share her opinion and insights on it so that this might be something that you do in your industry, something special, whereby having a contest, I would call it even being a contest-preneur, that you can create your own beautiful and powerful network. So Lynn, why don't you share what you have experienced as we collaborated together on the contest?
I think the most important thing that I learned was that I had a chance to redefine networking. I mean, you've redefined networking for a very long time, Melissa, through Networlding. But as somebody who's networked for my whole career, I wanted to change the conversation about it. And I said, for me, having more connections is nice, but it's not necessarily getting me to the goals I want to achieve. And the networking, the mentoring, which is what you've been doing with me and a couple others have done with me in the past, is really what makes the difference. So I feel like I have somebody kind of standing alongside me. And we knew that when you did this contest 20 years ago, 22 years ago, you were focused on networking, connections, and it was perfect at the time. But since the pandemic, everything's changed.
Absolutely.
So I thought our group said, let's talk about network mentoring because, it's just not enough to hand over a connection or introduce somebody. You have to have a lot of intention behind why you want to have these people talk to each other and possibly work together on something.
Absolutely. And the beauty of this contest was we got into a groove, if you will. We were focused. And what came to me the first time we had 10 winners. And I had the great honor of meeting Billy Dexter, who now I've co-authored, or I should say he co-authored a book with me. I was the coach, but this was Billy's his rich wisdom that he had in networking. It was very fun to blend my methodology of networlding with his making your net work. But 22 years later, we have a podcast now called Awaken the Network, where destiny happens. And I've been the beneficiary of helping so many authors that were referred by Billy. I thought it would be great to have a new contest. And when we got together, excuse me, we had a group of 7 judges, and you were one of them. And we also had the honor of having Anita Brick, who is in the Career Center at the University of Chicago, the Graduate School of Business. And I said to you, let's make this contest so simple so that it is effective. So I suggested we go for 2 months. We started February 19th, and we were to go right past April 15th, when everybody needs to get their taxes in, to April 19th. But what happened, Lynn, that surprised both of us?
Oh my gosh. Well, my network really paid off. I went back 15 years, 10 years to people I haven't talked to in a very long time. And I shared with them what we're trying to accomplish with this contest. And I said, can you think of one person who really is a networking mentor, which means they're networking to make a difference and contribute to somebody else rather than just share information or share contacts? And everybody said, I have the perfect person, every person I spoke to. And before I knew it, I think within 3 weeks, Melissa, we had 22 submissions.
Right. So there were 44 people involved, 22 who then submitted, one person per person. And we decided we should cut this off so that we could focus on quality. That's what Networlding is about, focusing on quality versus quantity of individuals, because we wanted to give everybody that time and effort and focus. And that resulted in wonderful exchanges, networlding exchanges, where we were able to really get to know the individuals involved. And so we do plan on doing another contest. But what was very, very beneficial here was no matter what, no matter how much wisdom you hold, there was more to learn. And I felt like we were revitalizing the whole area of networking and networking practices. Your thoughts?
I did too. I adopted some of those principles so fast that I noticed a change in how I was networking. I really wanted to make sure there were connections that mattered to people and that they could see progress because of it. And I think that what was really surprising to me was when we had so many submissions, we had to go another round and ask some additional questions from the actual nominees. And so we asked 3 questions about their feelings about networking mentorship and how they want to make a difference. And the answers to those 3 questions helped us choose 11 winners.
I love that you mentioned that. And the other thing, it was our contest. So we were able to be malleable. We were able to really go deeper into finding these amazing winners. And I would say that the experience for me, the number one word in the experience would be joyful, because when you think about it, the question, and we're getting into the next segment on questions and a big surprise here, so stay tuned. I want to say surprise in the form of giving you a tool that I think will help you no matter what you're doing in business. I think that this process that we want to share with you will help you. But the beauty here of the contest was getting people to connect to one another and build these relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So take us into the next segment.
To the next segment. Well,
yes.
You and I have had a lot of conversations about how curiosity is sort of a core value for me, and asking questions is part of the work I do with the people I work with. I just ask questions that really make them think differently about what they know how to do and why they do it. And so you said, Lynn, you should really focus on your skill of being a questioneer.
A questioneer.
Right. Right. And she said, and you said, I just happen to have a book that would help you kind of get jump started on that 75K dreidling questions.
To change the way you work, which we hope this will help people do that in a more positive way. Yes.
Yes. And you have lots of proof that it works and how it works. And so I've been going through the book, but the first question there's questions, there's the question, and then there's a way to go deeper.
Yes.
And that's what we want to talk about today. So should I announce the first question that we discussed?
Let's announce the first question. But before we do that, this is the process. It's called ask. So it's awaken with a question, spin out with more and better questions, and kindle and ignite with action questions. So we're framing that with one of the questions. And this question was the number one question that through the years that I trained through the book, because when you're a business writer, that's what you do. You're looking at taking your wisdom and translating it into a book and then offering it out there to others so that you can pass the wisdom on. So go ahead, Lynn.
Well, our first question is, what would your organization be like if your mother ran it?
Yes, and this question is a very powerful question. So what we found to be true with it is that an example that I'm giving is with Dean Foods. I got a chance to be a coach there to their top female leaders. And I asked this question as a way to show versus tell what was possible with the organization to help the leaders grow and evolve with their skill base. And it ended up that question opened the door, and I got that opportunity to be a coach for an entire year to the 15 top female leaders in the group. And it ended up that question either had half the room was crying and half the room was laughing. And I know, Lynn, you started to ask people that question. So what were your results?
Well, I asked myself that question first, and my mother is still 89 and kicking. And so I tried to imagine my mother coming into at least the companies that I worked with where it was male dominated. And I just pictured her getting very frustrated over the indecision. And saying, can you just, she had a particular phrase that I've always appreciated, which was, just stop playing at making a difference. Just do it.
Oh, I like that. That's very, very, very good. Yeah. And was there anyone else you shared that with that had an effect on, one way or another?
I did suggest, I did mention it with one of the nominators of the contest. Mm-hmm. Yes. And she said, and I mentioned it to her yesterday, and she said, oh, my mother would just take over.
And by the way, there were a lot of people in my group too, that they had mothers where, take charge. So when it comes to asking questions, what really happens is you are giving someone a gift that actually opens their mind and their hearts and moves them to another place. It's a way to create. And myself, I have a newsletter that comes out every other week, and I keep finding that even just one question, and I shouldn't say even, because I think it's better to ask one great question than a bunch of questions that might not be as, a catalyst to open up thought. But I find that asking a significant question really creates connection. And if there's anything we need in this time, because I call this time a connection crisis, and we need each other. We need to form networks. We need to build connection, and we need to care and listen. And there's so much opportunity. So I hope the ask methodology will be of benefit to you. And any last minute thoughts, Lynn, about either the contest or the question process, the ask process?
The ask process, when I did it myself, I just couldn't get over how much fun I was having imagining my mother running a company. and I just found myself laughing, and I shared that with her, and I said, I can just picture you just whipping them all into shape and getting things done. She did it actually, a quick story, she did it actually for legislation for special needs children. She said, if I were running this state, I would change the rules and make sure that kids with special needs could be mainstreamed. And she did it.
That's beautiful. And I know Dan Pink, who's a phenomenal thought leader, he is into questions now and getting people to participate. And people, there's no question, we love to be needed and share. And when we do that, we feel connection. So for anyone out there, we'd love to hear any questions you've come up with that have been helpful in opening up conversation and connection. One of the very best questions that I created, and maybe somebody created it before, who knows, but one of the best questions I've seen and used often is, what's the best question you've ever been asked? And it gets people thinking, because our brains are neural networks, and we sift through that question. And one other little networking tip I'll give, since I'm right on that subject, and then we'll close here. It's the idea of understanding. It would be better if a general networking tip is, if you ask somebody, who do you know, what do you think is going to happen to their brain? It's going to be like this. It's going to be a deadlock. The better question to ask, just like awaken with a question for the A, spin out with more and better questions. This is an S question. If you say instead, who is one person you know that would be able to answer this question for me I have about whatever my issue is? And by asking for one, that neural network sifts through and really pinpoints it for so many reasons. So when you're looking at growing your abilities and building yourself out through, especially if you're a creator and you like to think of new things, which I always love to do, that's a great question to ask. And getting other people's insights and including them is very powerful.
And that was how I asked the question for the contest. Can you think of one person who fits this characteristic? And it was much easier for them to come back with something very quickly and respond very quickly with a submission than if I said, who do you know?
Yes. Yes. If somebody says that to me, my brain, I have 13,000 connections on LinkedIn. What am I going to say here? We really have to look at quality versus quantity. And that's another thing I'm working on, is one of the 9 great paradoxes of all time, which is all about start small to grow big. Quality equals quantity. Quantity does not equal quality. So on that note, we are going to say goodbye for now, in that we really hope that this benefited you. We'd love your questions. We'd love your ideas. Please get in touch and stay connected once you do. Over and out, Lynn. Until next time.
Until next time.